Hi, welcome back to Podpadstudios and the Dana build. And as you can see, there has been a radical transformation. Now, all the primer went on great, rubbed it down, rubbed it back. I think it had about 3 coats of primer. So I've got quite a nice finish on there. Then put the base coat on. Now, the idea was, I've been umming and ahhing loads about the camo pattern. And I decided to go with the digital pattern in the end, mainly because I actually quite like it. And I think I've never done one, and I thought it might be quite cool to have a go and see how easy or how difficult it is to do this kind of camo pattern. The base colour is this. Now, these are the paints I use. Anybody wants to use paints, these paints are just simply awesome. Really, really, really good value. I can't rate these paints enough. They're just so good. These particular paints have got a matte finish as well. And it's a beautiful, beautiful finish, and it goes on really, really nicely. Anyway, this one is the base colour that's gone on, and the whole thing was painted with that base colour. What I've then done is cut out hundreds and hundreds of little masking tape squares, which have then been stuck on, as you can see, like that, over here to build up the digital pattern, and then oversprayed with the kind of the camo green. Now, I know it looks a bit bright, but I'm actually after quite a bright, vivid colour on this one. I didn't want to just do it dull, khaki, camo kind of greys and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Now, the other 2 colours, so that is obviously the green colour, that's gone on like that. The next process is a little bit different. Instead of basically now overspraying the whole thing a different colour, what I'm actually going to do now is make these are kind of like a positive template that's stuck on. I'm now going to create a negative template, which is basically going to be like a stencil that's going to be put on, and effectively you mask the rest. And then this colour is going to go on, and it's going to look quite cool when that one goes on, because it's going to be it's got a slightly bluey green to it, and I think that one's going to look really, really nice. And so that will be done maybe in areas where there isn't, or over the top. So the idea is to build it up and layer the colours. And then the final is your more traditional khaki green, which will go on, and it will be used in areas where I want to get some shadows as well. This will be sprayed on a little bit more raw. Then, once all that is on, I will look and make a decision about whether it's too bright or too dull, or how or what, and it will be oversprayed then with different colours to bring it all together. And then, of course, once all that is done, it's then got to be weathered, which is going to actually be really good fun, working over this camo effect and trying to weather. But that's all part and parcel of it. So what I've got to do now is go and cut out loads of templates and carry on painting. Now, I'm not going to do anything today. This was all done about a day ago. It's dry, but I want to make sure it's completely dry, so when the masking tape is put on, you know, it goes on and it doesn't lift any of the paint off or lift any of the edges off, things like that. So a whole day to dry before the next layer goes on, and then it will be the same again. So to paint it will take about a week. And then obviously you can see I've masked all the wheels off. The wheels have all got to be painted up. I'm probably going to do the wheels with a combination of these 2 paints. I think the colour might look quite good, but we will see when it's all on. So there I'm at. That's where I'm at, sorry, with the Dana at the moment in paint. Weather forecast. It's sunny, and it's going to be sunny for the next few days. Tiffany's happy, I'm happy. Mrs. Breaker is not happy. She's not a hot weather person. She's a winter person. She said, well, anyway, let's not talk about the weather. Right, what have we been doing? So Tiffany has had some upgrades. As you can see, she's a bit naked at the moment, exposing all her inner parts. She could do with a bit of dusting, actually. I don't know why she's so dirty and dusty, although she did have just a last week at the NEC, and those places are incredibly dirty and dusty. And anyway, so what have we been doing? We have changed the object recognition system. Now, the reason we've changed it is because we wanted to upgrade to the new Raspberry Pi 5. Now, the Raspberry Pi 5 is in there. There's no point in me showing you what it looks like, because it looks exactly the same. In fact, I've got somewhere, looking through my drawers, Ooh. I think that is a Raspberry Pi 2 or a 3. As you can see, they haven't really changed much actually over the years. They changed the ports and they changed a few bits and pieces, but the form factor stays the same. Things move around and, you know, but yeah. So this is the Raspberry Pi 4 that came off Tiffany, and we were using the Pi Camera 2. You can see it's attached by a ribbon cable. It was down here, it was all connected up. The Pi Camera 2 was mounted here, and we ran the object recognition. You know what the object recognition looks like because you've seen it on all the things that we've been doing. What we're now running is the Raspberry Pi 5. Now it's much, much more powerful, but the big difference is we're actually running the Halo AI hat on the Raspberry Pi 5. So instead of the kind of 11, sort of 10 to 12 frames per second we were getting from this running OpenCV using the COCO library, we have now changed using YOLO. We're using YOLO 8 with the AI hat, and we're in the region of 30 to 40 frames a second. So the difference is just phenomenal. Processing on the YOLO library is much, much more accurate as well. So we're getting, whereas we could never get mega accuracy. Well, the issue was that the greater the accuracy, the slower the frame rate. So there was always that compromise between watching something that was going like, and it wasn't very exciting, to something that was moving quickly. It looked exciting, but it wasn't very accurate. Now we've got both. And even better, we've got multiple camera support on the Raspberry Pi 5, which we are now using. Now, for many, 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 many years, well, ever since she was built, Tiffany has had an array of cameras. And a lot of the time they don't get used. This camera here is a 5.8 gigahertz camera, which can be linked to an external screen, and it's a high resolution camera as well. It's a Sony chip in there, so it's really, really good. But we didn't really use it much because really it's just showing you what she kind of sees. This camera here has been replaced. This is now the Pi Camera 3, and it's a much higher quality camera than the 2, but more importantly, it has autofocus. Now the other one had fixed focus. So what we found was at certain distances, things were a little bit out of focus. This is an autofocus camera, much, much better. Now, I can't show you at the moment because I'm just waiting on another cable, ribbon cable, but this hole here is basically going to be another camera, and it's a Pi Camera 3, but it's a wide angle version of this camera. This camera works on about, I think it's 70 degrees angle. This is going to work on around about 128 degrees. So it gives us a much, much wider angle. And what we're able to do with that, we're going to use this camera to run the object recognition through the Halo hat, but we're going to use the other camera to play around with image detection, maybe facial recognition software that we're going to run. The other thing that changed, and you now have to do, although we were already doing it on the 4, is in Python, on the Raspberry Pi, you've now got to run in virtual environments. Now, the beauty of virtual environments is you can run everything independently without breaking anything else. So we're actually going to run here, we're going to run the Halo with YOLO 8 through the object detection, and we're going to run through a different environment with the other camera using the OpenCV library facial recognition. So it'd be really interesting to see what, you know, the different frame rates are, how the different cameras work. Really, by running the AI hat on the Raspberry Pi 5, we're not really demanding much from the Pi itself, running the object detection. So the wide angle lens running the facial recognition will be running off the Pi itself. And I think it's 3-4 times faster, the new Pi 5 than the 4. You can't really see, it's mounted in exactly the same place. It's in here, stuck to the back of the body, same switching. Now there was one problem, and I didn't really know whether it was going to be a problem because I thought I had enough power. But the Pi 5 does require a lot more power, and I say a lot more. The minimum, what they recommend is 5 volts, 5 amps at 5 volts. Power supplies on Tiffany to power the Raspberry Pi 4 were 5 volts at 3 amps. So of course we're able to power the Raspberry Pi 5 up, but the minute we do anything, we try to run the AI hat running YOLO, it just shuts it down. Also, because of the new power switching systems that the Pi 5 has got, the Pi 5 can also power the
HDMI video senders that we're running between Tiffany and the screen. I'm pointing over there because there's a screen on the floor, so I've been kind of playing around getting it all set up. And of course that takes more current out. So anyway, I've got my next thing now, hence why all the front of a bodywork is off, is I'm going to put in a bigger step down from 12 volts down to 5 volts, but at a much higher current. So I'm going to step it down to 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 amps available at 5 volts. So I'm not going to run out of power with the multiple camera systems running off the Pi. Because of course, when you start adding it all up, they might only be drawing 1 watt, 2 watt. I think the little camera draws, you know, tiny amounts of power. But all those tiny amounts of power add up. And when we start all running it together, all of a sudden, 5 amps isn't enough, or 3 amps isn't enough. And so that's going to be built into here. Also, you get a sneak preview to see how she's actually powered. So she's always been independently powered, Tiffany, on the top section. Simply because it's just so much more convenient. Also, there isn't a great deal of power draw. There wasn't a great deal of power draw since somebody put on a Raspberry Pi 5. So time will tell. We will see whether the 5 is going to be a problem in that it draws too much power and keeps shutting down and whatever, which the 4 never did. 4 never missed a beat. Or whether whether the 4 was the pinnacle of what you could do with a kind of a robot with this kind of power delivery. Or do I have to put another battery in here to power the 5 up? I don't know. We'll see. I've got plenty of space. Because the centre of gravity on this is so low, it hardly impacts on anything really. The lower lift mechanism on Tiffany is so powerful that it could lift so much more than this anyway. So there we have it. At the moment, I am, as I said, I've drilled a second, well actually that hole was always there, but I've just enlarged it a little bit. The difference between the Pi 3 camera, I haven't got one to show you, but because I said it's already in there, and the Pi 2 is the lens is significantly bigger on the Pi 3. So if you have any projects and you've drilled a hole for the Pi 2 camera, I would say it's, I don't know, probably a third bigger. So you need a bigger hole. But yeah, so that is it. That is the upgrade to Tiffany with object recognition. Hopefully it'll all be up and running and ready for the Swindon Comic Con this weekend, which Mrs. Breaker is now going to shout the dates at me. 21st of June at the Steam Museum in Swindon. Tiffany will be there sporting her new object recognition, if it works. See you there.